YouTube channel community, Beach Boys fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens. We're here today to talk about Beach Boys' 1975 compilation, Spirit of America. Released on Capitol Records on April 14th, 1975, and then later in September in the UK of that year. So, the Beach Boys in 1974, 75, 76 were on top of the world. They were one of the biggest concert draws of the decade. Their tour with Chicago throughout 1975 was like a humongous exposure to millions of people across the globe, and they had some really, really big, high-profile shows that year. Thanks to the success of Endless Summer having come out the year before in 1974, which was the greatest hits album that compiled a lot of their big hit singles from 1962 to 65, and completely reignited, reinvigorated their place on the charts, selling records again. So, Capitol, to be one to say, we like money, said, we should do this again, and they came out with this, Spirit of America. This album peaked at number 8 on the charts, on the Billboard charts here in America, and it covers a wider range of songs, whereas with Endless Summer, I think they did a great job of kind of keeping with the theme. There was the car songs, there was the surf songs, there was the girl songs, there was the beach songs, Fun in the Sun, but they did leave out like several like really big key tracks, and I think that's where they kind of put those onto this LP. And in a lot of people's reviews, they say that this thing's padded out with filler. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, they probably could have done a couple different choices for songs for sure, but I think because it's got its unique choice of songs, it makes it kind of stand out. The same guy did the cover artwork. Keith McConnell did the artwork again. He would also do Sunshine Dream in 1982, the last of the trilogy of this greatest hits packagings. This was the last one that like really made an effort. Sunshine Dream, no one bought that. I have a copy, and there will be a review at some point, but not for now. So anyway, really, really nice artwork on this thing. They went with the whole total Americana vibe, which in the summer of 75, summer of 76, it was the bicentennial for the America's birthday. It was America's band. It was Son of the Fun. This has been a real wordy album review where I cannot get my words right. Anyways, so yeah, banking on the vibe of like America's birthday, banking on the vibe of Endless Summer having been so big of a smash, being number one for a long time, and really, really getting the Beach Boys back into the public eye. This came out on Capitol. They were on Warner Brothers at this time, so Warner was like scratching their heads, being like, well, we've got this band, they're putting out new albums, and they are not selling like this one is. So here's the inside cover, which is pretty cool. You got Dick Clark there, and a couple of really nice shots of the guys. You see them, how they looked basically in the mid-70s, and then how they looked in 1966, and then a couple of earlier shots at the bottom there. So it's not as artistically set up as Endless Summer was, and the Beach Boys had absolutely zero say in this one. They had nothing to do with this album at all. Endless Summer, Mike at least gave the name, and that was a great name, but Spirit of America, Beach Boys had nothing to do with it. This album was also marketed as like a budget release, kind of like Endless Summer was. Endless Summer was about $6.98 when it came out, so this is probably the same price back then. And a new album at that point would have been around the same price too, so this was kind of marketed as a budget release, but for being a 2 LP set. In England, it was released as a 1 LP set because you can easily fit all of these songs on a 1 album. There's no reason that this thing has to be 2 albums. If anything, they could have made it even longer. They could have added way more songs and had this thing be like a triple album set. That would have been pretty cool. But at that point, they'd be kind of scraping the barrel. The reason why this thing kind of sticks out, you got The Little Girl I Once Knew and Breakaway on here, which are kind of, at that time, non-album tracks that were just kind of hanging around on 45s. So that was kind of cool. Having Breakaway on this thing is very bizarre because it stands out like a sore thumb. With everything else on here is basically like 1963 to 65, basically. 64 to 65. And, so having Breakaway on there is kind of far out. But there are a couple alternate issues of this album. This album in particular is the most common one that I have. This version is the most common one there is. It's got the sticker on the back with the songs to make it look like Superman is supposed to be saying it, but It's kind of down here by his chest, so some stickers are like actually turned more upright to be near his mouth. Um, the inside credits here at the very very bottom. This one mentions the credit for Mickey Mouse, being a Disney item. There are some very rare alternates that don't mention anything at all about Mickey Mouse down there, so those are cool. This was also issued on every format at the time, so 8-track, cassette tape, record. Um, the record itself came out on the Orange Capitol label, the original copies like this one. It was also reissued in 1978 with a purple label, reissued in 83 with the Capitol Color Band label, which is pretty cool, and then again in 1988 on the purple label, which is a very hard version of it to find. The RCA Record Club version of it, the text where it says Beach Boys on the label is like really, really long. So if you ever see one of those and it's like really, really long text, that's the RCA Club version. The Columbia Record Club edition actually says like CRC on it somewhere, I think either on the cutout groove or on the label somewhere. And there was actually a promo copy of this, like a gold stamp promo at the top, which is pretty hard to find too. There was, in fact, a CD version of this that came out in mid-1996, I think, that had the, it was a limited edition gold CD, and it had a couple other tracks on here, like Darlin' and I Can Hear Music. And a lot of people love that release. They think it sounds absolutely fantastic. And Graduation Day is a stereo studio version, not the live version. But it came out in 1987 on CD, 96 again on CD, and that was it. After that, it just fell out of print. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this album, beyond the fact that I'm covering every Beach Boys release that there ever was, is because this was pretty important when it came out. I mean, it kept the Beach Boys on the charts again after Endless Summer and was just as relevant, I think, as Endless Summer. Track listing wise, yeah, there aren't as many hits on here as Endless Summer, but there are some fantastic songs like Dance, 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 Do You Wanna Dance? Little Girl I Once Knew, Good to My Baby. Like, there's some great tracks on here. And then I guess people would consider things like Tell Me Why or This Car of Mine or something as like filler. But I think it adds to the spirit of the album. Hey, Spirit of America. Personally, I would have done the sequencing different and actually wrote down what I think it would be. I actually kind of did it in sections. So each side would have been kind of a quote-unquote a theme. Side 1 basically would have been Beach Boys Today, like that era of the Beach Boys. I would have done, I like opening with Dance, 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 so I would keep that. Then I would do Do You Wanna Dance, Good to My Baby, Little Girl I Once Knew, Please Let Me Wander, and When I Grew Up to Be a Man. And I'm going to post all this in the box below so you can see it. Side 2 I would have started with Breakaway. I think that's a cool area to start Breakaway. And then Salt Lake City, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, A Young Man Is Gone, Tell Me Why, and Graduation Day. So a bit of a fallout at the end there, but not terrible. Side 3 would have been the car and surf songs left over that weren't on Endless Summer. So 409, This Car of Mine, Custom Machine, Don't Back Down, Little Honda. I think that's a really cool side. And then side 4 is kind of the, what I'm going to call it the oldies act, the oldies side. So you start off with Barbara Ann, Hushabye, Hawaii, Do You Remember, Drive-In, and Spirit of America. It sounds like an American side. You got the drive-ins were huge back in the 60s, 50s, 70s. Spirit of America, just song about a race car. Do You Remember talks about the old school 50s rock and roll people. Hawaii is a place in America. Hushabye just sounds, Hushabye and Barbara Ann are old 50s covers. So, I mean, that side for me kind of feels like an Americana side. And I think ending with Spirit of America would be a cool idea. Name of the album, kind of a nice vibe to end with. But when this album came out, this came out in April, so in early March, Warner Brothers actually reissued the Sail On Sailor single with Only With You as a B-side. This song had been released in 1973 originally and did nothing, but this time, I think due to the fact that because this came out in April, by May 31st, Sail On Sailor hit number 49, which was their best charting single from Warner's ever. So I think this was pretty important in helping Sail On Sailor remain like a big song for them in the mid-70s. Not big, but like moderate radio airplay in the mid-70s. And the Beach Boys at this point, they were still adding a lot of weird, rare songs to their set list. They weren't going out completely with only doing their oldies hits. They were doing a lot of them, but they would throw some weird stuff in there. They started covering Jumping Jack Flash by this point. They started adding Warmth of the Sun. They were still doing weird things like The Traitor and the California Saga and Surf's Up. So, I mean, they were keeping current with their current vibe, but then also throwing in some oldies once in a while, mixing it up. And people loved it. They absolutely lost their mind. Their big tour with Chicago, like I said before, was huge. And Chicago and them were or they play, songs with each other. So there's some pretty cool recordings out there of them doing some songs together. But yeah, so this thing also had a 2013 Japanese CD reissue with Endless Summer and Sunshine Dream, which I'm like totally jonesing to find because I think that'd be super cool to have that. It's mini LP replicas, and it's on a high fidelity SHM CD, the cardboard sleeve kind of LP look. So I really, really do want to find that at some point. It came out on 8-track. The standard 8-track was just the black 8-track shell. The Columbia Record Club was gray or red, and the RCA one was white. The tape, the original 1975 tape, either had like the oval logo with the C on it, or a clear shell, eventually with the oval logo. The Columbia Records issue from 1975 doesn't have any songs on the front cover. The original tape from Capitol has the album, the artwork, and underneath it says all the songs like in a red font. The Columbia Record House version just has the album cover on the front with white borders up and down it, above and below. And the RCA one came out like apparently in 1986, and that's on a clear shell tape. So I also wanted to talk about this thing because I want to know who put this together. So there's a couple of names in here of people who mastered it. There's a guy at the very, very bottom named John Vanna. So Endless Summer was put together by a guy named Michael R. Ross, who apparently had like very little else to do with the Beach Boys beyond putting together Endless Summer. This thing was done by a guy named John Vanna. And I tried looking him up. I tried to see if there was anything to know about this guy, and there really isn't. Apparently, at one point, he was a special accounts manager. Then he was also a merchandising director. In 1974 and 75 were like the only things he did with like releases that I could find. He did a Nat King Cole compilation. He did a Les Paul and Mary Ford album, and then Spirit of America. Other than that, who was this guy? Like, why did he choose the songs that he chose? How did he arrange them? Was it done completely at random as a total cash grab from Capitol? Just put some product out there and hope it sells? Could be. Was there a reason why he chose the songs that he chose? Why was Breakaway on here? Capitol could have cared less at that point for Breakaway. The Little Girl I Once Knew is kind of a random, obscure choice. I'm glad they went with that instead of Frosty the Snowman like on Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3. So, yeah. Oh, one other thing I want to point out. This sticker on the back, there's apparently a very, very, very rare blue variant. The red one is obviously 99% of the time what you're going to see, but the blue variant is apparently extremely hard to find. Yeah, so I think that's about it for details on this thing. Beyond that, yeah, this was probably done as a total cash grab from Capitol to cash in on the fact that Endless Summer was huge. Let's keep that ball rolling. But I'd like to know the reasons why the songs were chosen. I'd like to know the what the story was when Keith McConnell was making the artwork. Like what was his inspiration besides America and American themes? How did he put these things together? The pictures on the inside I think are great because you get to see the guys, as people remembered them in the 60s and then as they looked now in the 70s. So that's pretty cool too. But I think having Dick Clark on there is fun as well. American Bandstand and all that. Yeah, beyond facts of trying to figure out anything about this album, which there really is close to nothing to know. Basically, it was made because Capitol wanted to keep the Endless Summer wave rolling, and so they put it out. There really isn't a whole lot of details to discover. I've spent a long time trying to figure out what the hell was the purpose behind this thing beyond making money, but like the packaging, the song choices. There's probably a couple other songs they could have put on this thing that would have been better choices. I mean, I do like this car of mine. I really like Hawaii and Salt Lake City, but they probably could have done something else. I think Darlin would have been a great choice. Maybe even Wild Honey would have been cool. I Can Hear Music would have been freaking great on this thing. So, why is everything from 1963 to 5 then Breakaway is on here? Like I don't get that part. Beyond that, the nostalgia factor. A lot of people grew up on these two albums, Endless Summer and Spirit of America. So I'd like to know your thoughts on this album. What's your story with it? When I was a kid, I didn't have this album. I had Endless Summer. And whenever I went to a friend's house and was digging through their parents' record collection, as you do when you're 7, I remember seeing this thing and being like, wow, what is this magical album? I remember thinking the cover was so cool and bright. I loved all the big colors. I remember looking at the back saying, like, what are some of these songs? Like, I didn't know a ton of these songs. I didn't know, like, Custom Machine, Spirit of America, Salt Lake City, Hushabye. I didn't know a lot of these songs. So for me, it was like, what's trapped in here? Like, I really want to hear this. Because I knew Endless Summer so well. So, as I've been researching this album, I've come across pages and pages of people talking about this thing when it came out, saying it either had a crappy mix or they absolutely loved it regardless of the mix. This was their introduction to the Beach Boys. This and Endless Summer was all that they needed. You know, the juxtaposition of hearing their new stuff compared to this stuff at that time, apparently for a lot of people, was like, who is this band? Like, hearing Holland as their most current album, then hearing this stuff, whole different group. So yeah, I'd like to know your stories, your take on this thing, your memories of when you bought it, if you bought it, and how it impacted your life or didn't impact your life, and you know, if you think you'd like to see it back on the shelves again. I think it'd be kind of cool to reissue Endless Summer and Spirit of America. They did reissue Endless Summer on vinyl a couple of years ago, but I don't know. There's something just aesthetically cool about this album. And before we go, let's open up the picture here. Look at that giant picture. That is cool, man. What a shot. So that's it. Long video. Beach Boys, Spirit of America. We know the songs, so I'm not going to review the songs at all. But you know, I'd probably give this thing like a 7 or 8 out of 10. The content, I mean, I'm a Beach Boys fan. I like what's on it. I mean, some of it, in my opinion, isn't their best. They could have picked out some other songs, and I think if the Beach Boys had like a little bit of say involved, they probably would have done a whole different thing. But you got some great stuff on here like Dance, 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 and Do You Want to Dance and all that. So really not a terrible set. I think that's all I have to say about it, because there's really not much to know about it beyond the fact that it exists to be a cash grab. Or not. You know, maybe they had songs left over from Endless Summer that they were like, you know what, we can't use these for right now. Maybe we'll do another album soon if this one sells and see what happens. So maybe that was the case. But anyways, my name is Giggens. This has been Spirit of America, the Beach Boys album review on the Giggens channel. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this album and your stories behind it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.